Hello, welcome to the jury charge in literary for the 120 class. I'm going to start off today with some congressional record, and the subject is right to life. Okay, here we go. Ready? I'm going to read this at 100 since it's more on the difficult side. Mr. Speaker, I am introducing today a resolution to protect the life of the unborn. It is with a deep sense of moral responsibility and conviction that I once again propose this amendment to the Constitution of the United States to ensure that due process and equal protection are afforded to each and every individual with respect to the right to life. Mr. Speaker, more than 1,500,000 babies are aborted every year. Those abortions are in direct contradiction to the principle that each and every individual has the most basic of all rights, the right to life. It is the responsibility of the United States to protect that right. This responsibility has been recognized by many of my distinguished colleagues. I am pleased to say that liberals and conservatives alike, as well as individuals on both sides of the road, have repeatedly shown support for the God-given right, the right to life. It is deplorable that we find ourselves in a society where abortion is commonplace and where physicians and intellectuals condone the taking of lives. It is time that we confront this issue and move to protect those lives that are needlessly taken each day. The basic tenet is that human life, regardless of age, health, or condition of dependency, must be preserved, protected, and guaranteed under our Constitution. The unborn have long been held to have legal rights under the law. They have property rights. They may inherit property, family names, and in some societies, family titles. As such, they deserve to be safeguarded just as an adult is protected under existing laws governing murder. Mr. Speaker, the right to life, especially for the unborn, must be reaffirmed and protected. In that spirit, I offer the following resolution to restore this most basic human right and to ensure that this right is recognized and protected under the Constitution of the United States. Okay. I'm going to give you some jury charge. This is on impeaching a witness. Here we go. Ready? Your Honor, this is verbatim. This is the report of September 11, 2013. This report is authorized by Deputy Gregory T. Conrad and Kurt J. Taylor. Quote, while at the location, a Mrs. Beverly Young, female, age 45, 11278 Orange Street, phone number 992-1180, contacted us and stated that she often talked with the victim, Susan Nathaniel. Mrs. Young further stated that an unknown male who lives somewhere in the neighborhood had been bothering the victim by asking her for dates. Mrs. Young said that the victim would not identify the male, but merely said that she would be surprised if she, Mrs. Young, knew who it was. The unknown male had been calling Susan Nathaniel since the death of her husband. Mrs. Young advised us that the victim stated that she would never date this male because she feared him, explaining that he was crazy, unquote. Now, as an officer of the court, Your Honor, I would like to explain to the court that when I interviewed Mrs. Young myself, she indicated the following: that she not be interviewed specifically at the murder site. By that, I mean the Nathaniel residence. She indicated she, Lori Engelbrook, and Mrs. Rayburn, and another unknown female, who she does not know by name, were apparently talking near the corner, and the deputy approached them. She, Mrs. Young, told me that she did not make the following statement to the deputy, quote, "who lives somewhere in the neighborhood," unquote. She said that Mrs. Nathaniel did not specifically point out this individual who was making the phone calls to be living somewhere in the neighborhood. She further told me that Mrs. Nathaniel did not tell her that this individual was asking her for dates. Mrs. Young further told me that Mrs. Nathaniel did not say, quote, "would not identify," but apparently Susan Nathaniel told her, quote, "could not identify the male." Mrs. Young further told me that the following language, quote, "she merely said that she would be surprised if she, Mrs. Young, knew who it was. The male had been calling her since the death of her," meaning Susan Nathaniel's husband, end of quote. Mrs. Young said she did not recall saying that to the deputy who interviewed her. Obviously, there are substantial differences between what Mrs. Young is telling me and what Mrs. Young told the deputy sheriff on that date. I would suggest, Your Honor, that I believe that I can impeach my own witness. And just for reference, when you hear the word quote or unquote, you're still writing that on your machine. You're writing everything verbatim, so that includes quote and unquote. Okay, all right. My next article for you is an expert opinion. This last jury charge that I just read to you, I read at 120. Now this expert opinion, I'm going to take it down to 100. Okay, here we go. The problem is to determine if the special circumstance referred to by Mr. Chase is true. Was murder perpetrated by an electronically constructed device, bomb, or explosive unit? We must determine and prove that the murder was committed by means of a destructive device, a bomb, or an explosive mechanism. For purposes of definition, a destructive device includes any of the following weapons. 1. Any type of projectile containing explosive or incendiary material or any other chemical substances, which are commonly known as incendiary ammunition. except tracer ammunition manufactured for the use in shotguns. Number 2, any bomb, grenade, explosive missile or missile device, or any device used for launching. Number 3, any type of weapon of a caliber greater than a .50 caliber, which fires standard ammunition other than a shotgun. Number 4, a rocket-propelled projectile, or other device of a diameter greater than .80 of an inch, and any rocket-propelled projectile, or other device which contains explosives or incendiary materials, or any other chemical substances. Number 5, any breakable container which contains a flammable liquid with a quick flash point of 160 degrees capable of being ignited. For the purposes of clarification, I will define a bomb. A bomb is any device that carries with it an explosive charge designed to detonate under specific conditions. These conditions include point of impact, a timing mechanism, or merely setting in a position at a given point with variable effects. An explosive means any substance or a combination of substances with the primary purpose or goal of detonation or rapid combustion. An explosive is capable of a relatively instantaneous or rapid release of gas and heat, the primary purpose of which, when combined with others, is to form a combustible substance. The term explosive includes nitroglycerin, dynamite, black powder, gunpowder, and smokeless powder, as well as other more elaborate and sophisticated chemical compositions. Was it a destructive device, a bomb, an explosive? We will need to evaluate all the evidence that was gathered at the scene of the crime at 18403 West Harding Boulevard in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We must determine if a device was planted, hidden, or concealed. We must determine if the device was in the structure, in the adjacent building, in the parking lot. Another alternative that we are looking at is the possibility of the device being mailed to this address. Someone knew of these acts, which were a potential threat to human lives. Okay. And I read that at 100 because it is more difficult. Okay, I've got an article here. This is called The Life Course Perspective. Okay, here we go. I'm going to read this at 100 as well. The social development theory is an integrated view of human development and is a process of interaction among and between individuals and society as the root cause of criminal behavior. Life course perspective, an approach to explaining crime and deviance that investigates developments and turning points in the course of a person's life over time. Some of the most recent perspectives on crime causation belong to a subcategory of a social process thought called social development theory. According to the social development perspective, human development occurs simultaneously on many levels, including the psychological, biological, interpersonal, cultural, societal, and ecological levels. Hence, social development theories tend to be integrated theories, that is, theories that combine various points of view on the process of actual development. Theories that fall into this category, however, highlight the process of interaction between individuals and society as the root cause of criminal behavior. In particular, they emphasize that a critical period of transition occurs in a person's life as he or she moves from childhood to adulthood. One social development perspective of special significance is the life course perspective. According to Robert J. Sampson and John H. Lobb, who named the life course perspective in 2013, criminal behavior typically follows an identifiable pattern throughout a person's life cycle. In the lives of those who eventually become criminal, crime-like, or deviant behavior is relatively rare during early childhood, tends to begin as sporadic instances during the early adolescence, becomes more common during the late teen and early adult years, and then gradually diminishes as the person gets older. Sampson and Lobb also used the idea of transitions in the life course or turning points that identify significant events in a person's life and represent the opportunity for people to turn either away from or toward deviance and crime. An employer who gives an employee a second chance, for example, may provide a unique opportunity that helps determine the future course of that person's life. Similarly, the principle of linked lives, also common to life course theories, highlights the fact that no one lives in isolation. Events in the life course are constantly being influenced by family members, friends, acquaintances, employers, teachers, and so on. Not only might such influences determine the life course of any given individual, but they are active throughout the life course. In 2006, the Federal Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, otherwise known as OJJDP, began funding a study of life pathways as they lead to criminality. The program of research on the causes and correlates of delinquency continues to produce results. Researchers have been examining how delinquency, violence, and drug use develop within and are related to various social contexts, including the family, peer groups, schools, and the surrounding community. To date, the study has identified 3 distinct pathways to delinquency. These pathways are not mutually exclusive and can sometimes converge. The authority conflict pathway, along which children begin to move during their early years, as early as 3 or 4 years old, involve stubborn behavior and resistance to parental authority. Defiance of authority begins around age 11, and authority avoidance, that is, truancy or running away, begins about the same time. The covert pathway, which starts around age 10 with minor covert acts such as shoplifting and lying, quickly progresses to acts of vandalism involving property damage. Moderate to severe delinquency frequently begins a year or two later. The overt pathway is marked by minor aggression, such as bullying, that develops around age 11 or 12. The overt pathway leads to fighting and physical violence during the teenage years and tends to eventuate in serious violent criminality that may include robbery and assault. Okay, that concludes our jury charge and literary for the 120 class.